Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Is there anybody there? Let me put my mouse away. Hello, thank you for joining me. I'm Mrs. H. We're going to sew the reversible hobo bag today. Let me just see if it's worked and if I'm live in the group. So I should be live in the Mrs. H group. Here I am. Oh, I can hear myself, so let's turn myself down. Let's try again. There we go. Okay, can you hear me? Is there anybody watching? Hi, Janome, nice to see you. Hello. I've had a bit of a long day, so please excuse me. I'm just going to get the machine set up, ready to go. Just waiting for you to join. So just do please comment, let me know that you can hear me, let me know that you can see me. Just going to pop a little bit of oil in my machine. Hi, oh, good morning, Cheryl. Hello, hi Lynn, hi Janome. Good afternoon, Lynn. I love being in different time zones. It's great, isn't it, that I'm here live and yet I'm talking to you and you're in a different time zone. It's brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little dab of oil in to my machine just while we wait for everybody to join us. And I might surprise you today with the colour fabric I'm using. We went through all of the sample bags that we've got and discovered that I'm lacking in orange bags and red bags. Surprise, surprise. I know lots of you are surprised about that. So we're trying to make a conscious effort to update my samples. So I'm just going to be using red thread today. I'm going to try and get away with using black thread in my bobbin, but I don't want to use black thread in my main thread in case you couldn't see what I'm sewing. So that does mean we're going to have a little bit of an agreement. And if you see any wonky stitches in my red thread, we don't mention this to anybody. And if anybody asks, oh, it was great. She didn't make one mistake with her red thread. Okay. And if it all goes terribly wrong, I've got a day to unpick it all before we're back for the next part. So just thread up my machine while a few more people join. And then I'll show you what we're going to be making. And then we will get on with the sewing. Before we do, I'm going to go through all of the pieces that you should have cut out ready so that you can double check where we are. We're going to be recording this so we can pop it onto YouTube. So if you don't have time to watch me for the whole time today or the second part, don't worry. We'll pop them onto YouTube and you can follow along there. Okay, so there's nothing so easy as threading a machine when you're live. It's the easiest thing in the world, honest. Do you believe me? Oh, it's almost painful to watch, isn't it? See if I've got a needle threader. I do have one on my machine, but it's worth noting that I broke it within 2 days of owning the machine. So, unfortunately, I have to use a manual one. Oh, hang on. Let's check I've got the right needle in first. Can anybody read that? Well, that's a little one. I need a bigger one. Hang on. Let's put a bigger one in. That might help, mightn't it? Hello, hi everybody. Hi. Oh, thanks, Cheryl. I loved that orange bag with the blue. Oh my goodness. I'm really not a fan of orange, but as I sewed it, it started to grow on me, and by the end, absolutely loved it, and it was perfect for our summery window. So I think we made a good choice there. And that was actually, I'm a little bit nervous with clashing colours because it was blue polka dots with orange plaid, which we would call checks here. but somebody else had done some polka dot piping in a class we did, and I thought, oh, I really like that. So it made me a little bit braver, so thank you to the ladies who were here that day and set me up for a bit of bravery there. So do feel free to tell me in comments if you're ready to sew, if you're cut out, or if you're just watching and then you'll get cut out later, or maybe another time. It's longest day of the year today, isn't it? Or it is here in the northern hemisphere anyway. Hi, oh hi Georgia. Hello. So Georgia works with me here in the studio and has seen me all morning, and I was surprised you're here, Georgia. I thought you'd be fed up of the sight of work. Okay, right, so I've threaded up, I've had a little oil, we should all be here now. I've got my labels that say handmade by Mrs. H, I've got them here, and if I don't keep them here I forget to put them in. So I've got them there. So let's have a look. Is there any questions so far? We're all okay. Hi everybody. Hi Annie. If you haven't given it a go, I would recommend that you do try, because it would be great if you could still sew, wouldn't it? So let's have a look at what we're going to sew today. We are going to sew the Reversible Hobo bag, and this is the pattern front for it. This bag is reversible. So I know that some people ask the question, is it actually reversible, or is that just a name? It is actually reversible if you'd like to make it reversible. The bag we're going to make today and finish off in part 2 is reversible, but the one I've got here for you is not reversible. Okay, so here's the non-reversible version. They look exactly the same. The only difference is that you can't turn it inside out and use it with the other side out. So I'll show you it on me. I absolutely love this bag. I don't think it gets enough love really for how gorgeous it is. It just sits really nicely under your arm there. I've done a little bit of patchwork there. We all know how good I am at matching my edges and patchwork. So it just sits there. It's a really lovely size. It's great for a lunch out or a day trip. It's got a really lovely, if I do say so myself, shoulder strap. So the shoulder strap is this wonderful wide padded shoulder strap with a little dent in the middle just to make it nice and comfortable when you're carrying it. And these swivel clips are the key to it being a reversible bag. Okay, so the majority of the bag is fixed, but the swivel clips on the front here and on the edges are what makes it reversible. So it closes with this flap. I've just done mine out of grey on both sides because I love grey. But when you turn this bag inside out, there'll be another one of these catches on the inside, and then your bag becomes reversible like that. I'll show you once we're there, okay? But just trust me, it is reversible. So it's a massive space in there really. It's a huge bag. It's very sizable. It's very comfortable to wear. This one's a little bit stiffer than the ones we'll make today. I used some, I can't remember what I used. Used something a bit stiffer than I usually would on this one for the quilting. And on the back there is a zip pocket. So there's 2 zip pockets in this pattern. There's one on the outside and one on the inside. And then when you turn it inside out, there's one on the outside and one on the inside, if that makes sense. There's no slip pockets on this one, but if you would like to add a slip pocket, then you can do so on the same panel. Just beware that when you've got it this way round, it will be showing there. If you don't want to make it reversible, then just add a slip pocket onto the lining panels, okay? So that is what we're going to sew. And we'll have a little run through of our pattern pieces and what we should have cut out. Just double checking if everybody's okay, yeah. So if you've got any questions, please do feel free to ask them. And if I can't see them, or if I don't see them, then Elle, who is on customer services today, will have a look and answer what they can. So let's have a look at our hardware first. I'm using gunmetal hardware, and you'll see when I get to my fabric why that is. So you should have 2 triangle rings that are 1.5 inches wide. That's 38mm. Let me see if I change view. Might be able to see it a little bit easier. So I've got 2 of the larger triangle rings. I've got 2 of the smaller triangle rings. These are 1 inch or 25mm, 2.5 centimetres. You can adjust these, you just need to adjust the pattern pieces if you don't have those. And then 3 of these swivel clips, and they are all the same size. So they're all 1.5 inches, 38mm. Okay, and I've just chosen these ones because I think they're quite nice. All of my hardware is from Emmaline because I think the quality is fantastic, and you can't beat it. So all of those are from my very good friend Janome at Emmaline. I've also got 2 zips that match both of my fabrics. I am going to need to adjust one of my zip pockets because I'm using an upcycled garment and I was a little bit low on fabric. So I've got the recommended zips or the required zips, but I will need to change my zip pockets when I get to it. Right, so let's have a look. I'm using the paper pattern. Now the paper pattern does contain rectangles. The PDF pattern at the moment doesn't contain rectangles. We are going through the older patterns and adding them in. We just haven't quite got there yet. So what we've got is, and I've used the labels that are included as well. I've got 2 exterior main panels and 2 lining main panels. They're not really linings though because it's going to be reversible. So this used to be a men's shirt that I picked up at the charity shop because I needed something red, and I'm very, very fussy with red because it's not my favourite colour at all. But I went into a charity shop and I saw this and I thought that would be perfect for what I want it for, and I cut it on the bias, so I cut it diagonally so that my bag will have the stripes or the checks running diagonally. So for my exterior, excuse me, my exterior, I've got 1 of these red and black checks and 1 faux leather. Sorry. Okay, so that's my main fabrics. And then my contrast, which will be inside, unless I want to swap it out, I'm going to have 2 black faux leather. So I can either use it as an all black bag or black and red check. Black and red check. Okay, so I've got the option there by doing that. So that's our piece A. And just take note, if you're using directional fabrics, on the cutting out, it says to cut it width by height. So it should be wider than it is high. Okay, so if you've got directional fabrics, just bear that one in mind. Right, pattern piece B is, let's have a look, the side accents. And I've got those in the red and black check. And I've cut 2 of those. Kind of cut them a bit on the diagonal. I've tried. Not sure if I've quite succeeded fully on that one. But I've tried. And then piece C is our handle. And I've got 1 black and 1 of the red and black check. And on the red and black check, we've put a piece of fusible fleece and we've cut it slightly smaller all the way around just to reduce the bulk because the fabrics themselves are quite thick that I'm using. If you want to, like on the example bag, I've created some patchwork and then I've used the patchwork to cut out the handle. That also works really, really well. Okay, so we've got those, so that's C. D is the front flap. So this is the part that goes over the front of the bag, over the top of the bag, to just secure it and to create that sort of slouchy shape. So again, I've got 1 of the check and 1 of the black faux leather. So just beware when you're cutting out that they are this way up, the tab is going to be on the bottom. And then pattern piece E, the front bottom catch. Now there's two different measurements on here. If you're using vinyl, you cut it half the width. Now my fabrics, as I said, are quite thick, so I've cut both of them half the width, and I've got one black and red check and one black faux leather. You can see a theme here, can't you? And then final piece, piece F, and that's our zip pockets, and they're both cut to the same size, except I didn't have quite enough fabric. So one of them is slightly smaller than the others, than the other. I'm just going to adjust my zip pocket when I come to that, okay? Right, so that is all of our pieces. Now, as I sew, I am going to be following the pattern just to make sure that I don't tell you anything wrong. It has been known to happen before. No, I hear you say. You can't believe that, I know. Right, so we will need our back panels to start with. Let's just check in, see if there's any questions that I've missed. Oh, I'm in the wrong place now. Let's see. See if I've missed any questions. Oh, thanks, Elle. They're helping, giving the link. Hi, everybody. Hello. Thank you for joining us. So we are going to record this and pop it onto YouTube. So don't panic. You can rewind it. You can watch us back. It's only me here. You can watch me back. You can come back to it. You can pause. You can sew it another time. That's fine. So I'm not going to put a pocket on my nice red and black check. I'm going to put a pocket on two of my faux leather pieces. And I'm going to swap that out. I haven't put my fleece onto any of the faux leather yet. I have put my fleece onto the red and black check main panel just to save a bit of time. But that was kind of cheating, really. So I'm just going to layer these all up again. Put them out of the way so that we can concentrate on what we're doing first. So make sure that you've got your main panels the right way round. So they should be 20 inches wide. Okay, and then we're going to cut a little square out of each bottom corner. So if you've got directional fabric, make sure that it's the right way round. And if not, it doesn't really matter as long as you've got it wider than it is tall. And I'm going to cut, double check in there, just in case. I'm going to cut 2-inch squares out of the bottom corners. And you can do this a lot more carefully than I am by marking it and then cutting it with scissors. You'll need to do this on all 4 pieces eventually. I'm just being a bit impatient. Just impatient to get started, I think. I've been waiting all day to sew, and I did paperwork this afternoon as well. Right, I haven't quite gone through the corners there. So I'll just cut these last little bits off, and then I'll come back and do the other ones when we get there. So we should have our bottom corners removed there. Okay. So we're going to do exactly the same on both panels. So I'll just put one to the side for the minute. And I'll use my pocket piece that is the right size to start with. And then I'll modify for the smaller piece. I just couldn't get it out of the shirt that I was using. Just didn't fit. Now before we start, let's mark our centres. Front and back, or top and bottom rather. So mark them within the seam allowance. Now I'm using black, so what have I got? I might have to put a pin through just so I can see where it is. And if you don't mark them now, you'll need those centre marks later. So if you're watching, you're sewing with me, go ahead and do that. Whenever I'm making a bag, I always get to a certain point and think, oh no, I should have marked my centres, and I hadn't, so I have to go back and do them. Right, so that's fine. Now, this faux leather that I've got is it's quite an old one that's been in my stash a while. Doesn't work very well under heat of the iron, so I'm going to have to be really careful. So if you've got better fabric than me, you don't need to be quite so cautious. Right, and I'll mark the centres of my zip pocket on the back as well. I'm just going to do that top and bottom so I can line this up. A nice straight pocket, seeing as this will always be visible on the back panel. Well, I suppose it depends if you've made it reversible or not. Right, so let's see where we're positioning this. We are putting it 6 inches from the bottom edge. So I'll get my ruler and I'm just lining up that centre mark there, making sure that the bottom edge is completely even. Okay, now because I'm using this faux leather, I'm just going to pin right along the very top where I know it's going to be sewn together, so it's going to be hidden in the seam allowance. This faux leather doesn't hide the pinholes very well compared to some of the newer ones, the more modern ones. This was just in my stash. I was trying to be very thrifty and stash bust a little bit, but all that's happened is I've ended up with a headache using fabric that's not perfect. Right, so now we're going to draw a box, and the box is going to be 8 inches long. So it tells you in the pattern all of these measurements. So I've just put my ruler again to mark. So I'm lining up exactly where the centre mark is. Now I'm using charcoal interfacing just so that I can be sure and keep those colours really nice and bright. But as a result of that, I'm using quite a bit of white chalk so you can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. Can you see? Not so much. I've moved my table since the last time I did a video. I'll do this and then see how we can sort of make it a little bit more obvious for you. Right, so all I'm doing is marking the top and the bottom lines to start with. I've marked where my centre is and I know that I need an 8-inch line. So to do the ends, I can just measure 4 inches either side of that centre mark. Okay, so I've got my box in the middle there. You can kind of see that actually, that's not too bad. Now if you're feeling a little bit nervous and like me you're using faux leather, you can always pin it inside this box area to stop it shifting around. I think I'm gonna give it a go and just be a bit brave. Oh dear, what happened there? Didn't quite transition, did we? Right. Oh, I've got my labels here. Let's see if I can remember to put one of these labels in. I'll put it here. I'm always forgetting to do that. I don't know if anybody else does that. Bought them. I'm gonna have so much fun. I'm gonna use these labels. It's gonna look amazing. 6 years later, I've still got loads of them left because I keep forgetting to put them in. So our fabrics, as you can see, are right sides together, and I'm just going to sew around the outside of that box. And I'm going to use, so my machine, the default number is a number 3 for stitch length. I'm going to use a 2-ish, maybe a 2.5, just to try and get that really neat on there. Okay, so because I'm not oh, hang on, have I brought my bobbin up? Yes, I have. That's good. Because I haven't got it pinned properly, just being a bit cautious about how I put that under the foot there. So we're just going to sew around the box. Now you can do a different method for a zip pocket if you know a different method and prefer a different method, okay? So don't feel that you have to follow the pattern in this, because that's quite a big gap on the back of the bag. You can adjust it. So we're just going right into the corner there, so I'm decreasing my stitch length just so I can get really nice and neat right into the corner there, and then continue round. So you can see as I approached the corner there, just decreased my stitch length, went really, really slow, and then sewed on. So I left my needle down, lifted my foot and pivoted. Okay, which is why I like to start with my needle down, because then I know exactly where it is. Okay, so I'm approaching the corner again, decrease my stitch length. I'm just taking it really slow, just to make sure I can be nice and accurate in those. Mostly because I'm using a contrast thread. Let's see. So if you turn the corner, you find you're not quite there yet, it's okay to unturn, go back and do another stitch, and then turn again. Okay. There's nobody watching, nobody checking. No one's checking that you're doing it as per some rules. I don't know of any rules. Right, so I've sewn it around all 4 sides of that box. Now, if I was using a nice fabric that you were able to see, I would have drawn a little triangle inside each end of that box and a line down the centre. But I haven't, because you can't see it and I'm being a little bit lazier. Although you might be able to see it on the back. Let's see if I can do that on the back for you, and then you can see that. If you're experienced bag maker, then you'll find this bag a nice quick sew. If you're new to bag making, then this is a great one to get started on. It's got a couple of zip pockets, which you don't even need to do if you're a little bit nervous of zip pockets. And you find it comes together quite nicely. Yeah, that's better. Let me tilt this slightly so that you can see. So I've just drawn a triangle in each end and a line down the centre there. And that's where we're going to cut now. I'm going to cut our hole to push the panels through. If you are a little bit brave, then you can use your rotary cutter to cut most of the centre line. If you're not, use some little snips or little scissors or a craft knife. So I've cut the majority of it using my rotary cutter, and now I'm going to cut in right to the corners using my scissors. And then turn it round so I can do the other side. Okay. So that's one of these done. Now, if you are wondering why we haven't applied the fleece to this yet, it's because this is this faux leather doesn't stick very well at all to the fleece. So I've decided to, I should have told you this earlier, I've decided to go slightly off pattern, and we're going to make our zip pocket first, and then I'm going to baste the fleece in as though it were a sew-in stabiliser, just because it doesn't adhere very well at all. And I spent ages earlier trying to get it to fuse, and it didn't. So, right, so now that we've cut our box, usually I would tell you to get your iron and pull the pocket back and just press against that with your iron, and do the same on the other side, and the same on the other side, and the same on the other side. But this faux leather, as I've said, is not very good at taking the heat. A little bit like me on a summer's day. So instead we're just going to pull it through, and I'm going to finger roll it to try to make it nice and neat. And just for a moment, while I check if there are any comments that I need to reply to, just finger rolling that and clipping it. So I haven't used any heat at all, so in theory these clips shouldn't leave a permanent mark on here. Just holds it in place nicely. If you've got time, if you're just doing a little bit at a time and then stopping and going off, then I would recommend maybe fold this back, clip it, and then come back to it another time. Or buy a nice faux leather from So Hot that can withstand the heat. This one was not. And yeah, apparently 11 years as a bag maker is not long enough to learn the lesson that you should never use terrible faux leather. Right, so we'll just leave that clipped for a minute while I check if there's any questions or anybody else. Hello. Oh, hi everybody. Hi. Hi Elle. Hi Mum. Hi Geneva. Hi Deb. Hi. Hi everybody. So if you've got any questions, please do ask. I'm happy to answer them. Now on the back, now this is the easiest zip pocket that you'll do. So if you're an experienced bag maker, you know exactly where we're going now. If you're new to bag making, then don't let zips panic you. They're okay. So on the back now, I am going to add a little bit of tape to the top and the bottom of my box. I'm using double-sided wash away tape because I know that it won't gum up my needle and it won't cause any mishaps. Where's my clip box? There it is. Now I wonder if I can get away with a little bit of gentle pressing on there. Let's give it a go. Should have tidied up a bit before I said let's give it a go, because now I've got to give it a go and tidy up at the same time. Never mind, Dave. It's easier downstairs in the studio because I've got the whole big table. I've got two sort of 6-foot tables. Right, so all I'm going to do is just give that a really very delicate, gentle little press. Let's see if it can take the heat. If I melt it, this sew along will be over a lot quicker than expected. Right, seems to be okay so far. Give it a bit of a tug as we press. It's quite nice, this, I think it's a flannel shirt. It's 100% cotton, so it does press quite nice. Shame to cut it up, really. Okay. Right. Yeah, that worked. Phew. Okay. So now we'll add a little bit of double-sided tape to the back of this pocket. I don't know if you can hear that. My iron's just bubbling away. I slightly overfilled it earlier. I had thought that I'd tipped a bit away, but it's just getting excited, I think. Right, so I'm adding that right onto the edges of this red fabric, and it might be that I have a little bit of red peeking through my zip pocket because I've not been able to press this very well. If that happens to you, don't panic. It's a nice contrast sometimes. Okay. Label. Should we try putting this in now before I forget? Good idea. So I'm just going to pin that onto the zip pocket there, and I'm going to baste that in place just so that I don't have to have any pins when I'm sewing the pocket together later. I said baste it in place, really I just whizzed through on whatever stitch length I had already. Right, great, I've remembered that. I feel like I'm already ahead of the game now. So, let's get our zips. Lovely. And we'll peel the tape off, or peel the backing off of the tape. Don't peel the tape off. We want the tape left behind. But we don't need the backing strips at the moment. So we'll take those off. Now to make sure that that is nice and centered, I'm going to lay my zip down right sides up. Just grab hold of my zip pocket and pop that into place on there. Now I like to place these zips so that I can see exactly where those metal stoppers are. If you don't like to see the metal stoppers, then maybe just take a minute to trim those off before you place it, and then you know it's not going to get caught when you're sewing it. Right, so that looks a little bit messy from where I'm standing, so I'm just going to maneuver that into place. So I'm just using my fingers to lift this fabric where the tape is. Just maneuver it into place. You can baste it if you're using a tricky fabric like mine. You can hand baste it into place, or you can just embrace it. Right, so I'm going to start sewing in this bottom corner of my box, and then I'll sew all the way around and back to the start. Now I'm using a red thread. I hope I'm not going to regret this. I suspect I might. Let me change it back to the other view so that you can see every single wonky stitch, because I think that's quite nice and encouraging to see other people do wonky stitches too. Okay, just try and fit that under with the least amount of pulling possible. So I'm going to start with my needle down again. Move my other zip before I sew it to this panel. Right, so as I'm approaching the zip pull, I've lifted my foot, just moving the zip pull out of the way. Just going to do a little stitch just to get me to the right place there. Okay. Just taking this really slow so that I can make sure I'm doing it really nice and neat. And then pivot again, and hopefully I'm in sort of the right place yet. Doesn't look too bad. Oh, got stuck somewhere along the way. Okay. I think I just got caught underneath. That was, I have got my walking foot on, which I don't really need with this machine, but I like to use it. A little bit of a comfort blanket for me. Okay, and then back round. Just sewing over the initial stitches that I sewed right at the start, just to make sure that I don't have to back stitch, because I don't think that would be very neat, back stitching in my contrast thread. So I'll just trim my edge there. Hopefully I haven't caught anything. No, excellent. Okay, so now we've got our one zip sewn into panel, as you can see. And now we're going to flip this over, and we're just going to match up the bottom and the edges and sew around all of these edges. Now one of these will need to leave a turning gap. This is not in the pattern, but this is a better way of doing it, which we developed after this pattern was released. So feel free to modify your patterns as you come across techniques that are updated or have moved on or changed. There's absolutely no need to follow the pattern to the letter if something like this crops up, but have a read through of the pattern first before you make these changes just to double check there isn't a reason why you can't. You know, sometimes there might be a construction reason, but in this case it's absolutely fine to modify this. Move my zip pull into the middle. So if you would like to, then I would leave the turning gap on this first one. Let me try and remember to leave that turning gap. So I'll put a double pin in there and a double pin in the other side. Okay, let's double check I'm not missing any questions. Oh, we all have wonky days. Oh, thanks, Al. Hi Ingrid, hi Sharon, hi Elaine, lovely to see you. Right, okay, so let's sew this, and I'll stitch across this turning gap, but I'm going to stitch using a long stitch length so that I can steam those stitches and then take them out and have a nice neat turning gap afterwards. So what I'll do is I'll start at the top here with my regular stitch length, and I'll back stitch a little bit and then come down to these double pins, back stitch again, take my stitch length up to the longest it goes, stitch across the turning gap, then go back down to my regular stitch length, back stitch here at the start to the corner and back up to the end, and then back stitch at the end as well. So if I turn you over to the other view, you'll be able to see what I'm doing, hopefully. And you're just using your regular seam allowance, 3/8 of an inch. And just flip that main panel out of the way. Okay, so I've reached my turning gap, so I've back stitched. Now I've changed my stitch length up to the longest stitch. Oh, maybe another one. Okay, now I'm going back down to my smaller stitch length. A couple of back stitches there to the corner and then round. Again, just pull this main panel out of the way. There we go. Okay, so you can see here is where my turning gap is, and that's where I'm gonna I'll steam the stitches, and then at the end I can take those stitches out and it will leave a lovely neat line of holes for us to close our turning gap along. We can fold the seam allowances under along those lines. Okay, I can never remember whether I've steamed or not, so I always steam again at the end. So maybe if somebody reminds me, that would be really helpful. Okay, let's check that pocket is good. The zip works, the pocket is there, nothing falls out. Although I suppose things will fall out when I open my turning gap, won't they? Right, so that one is done, so I can place that to one side. Although maybe before we do, let's add our fleece to this panel, and then I know that's definitely my exterior panel. Otherwise I might forget, mightn't I? So I've helpfully clipped my fusible fleece on here. I know that some fusible fleeces don't like to fuse anyway at the best of times, do they? But this faux just you can't really press it very well, so I think that's probably why it hasn't stuck. Look, oh, it's kind of stuck a little bit, but most of it's falling off. So I need to take my corners off of this. Do you remember we cut our corners out earlier? And if it was going to stick, if it was going to fuse really nicely, then what I'd say is cut it 2 inches smaller. Not 2 inches smaller, ignore that. Cut it 1/2 inch smaller. It's because I was looking at the number 2 on this. ruler. Cut it 1/2 inch smaller all the way around, just to keep it out of the seam allowances, especially if you haven't got a very strong machine. But in this case, because we're going to baste it on, we kind of need those seam allowances, don't we? So we'll just take those corners off, and then we can lay this. Oh, hang on, no, that's not going to work, is it? Because I've got my turning gap. Ignore that one. That'll have to be our inside panel. The best laid plans, eh? At least we've cut our corners ready for later. Right, so we'll need our second panel. Now, let me just have a quick run through because I think I've been confusing. If you've got 2 different fabrics, then you will need 1 of each fabric without fleece on, okay? And 1 of each fabric with a zip pocket on in the end. So this is going to be my inside, and this is going to be my inside. So I've got 2 insides with no fleece on, and 1 has got a zip pocket. Okay, that is slightly less confusing, isn't it? This will be my outside, and that's got fleece on it. And this will be my outside, and this will have fleece on it with a zip pocket. So I'll do the zip pocket again as we did before, and then I'll add the fleece, and then we'll assess it again. And yeah, right, so this is my piece that's not quite big enough. This is great, isn't it? It's brilliant. Come and watch a professional. Oh well, just goes to show nothing quite goes to plan, does it? I think the problem is that I cut this one out instead of Georgia, and Georgia cuts them out very well and very accurately. And I'm a bit more, yeah, that'll be fine, that'll work. And then slightly regret it later. Okay, so same as we did before, just mark in our centre at the top and the bottom. I'm doing this in the seam allowance so that it won't be seen. So at the end of today, we should have 2 main panels with zip pockets on, 1 of each fabric, and we should have 2 main panels without zip pockets on, 1 of each fabric. Okay, right, does make kind of sense ish. Okay, so let's find the center of this pocket panel. I should maybe put in the notes of the video what we should have. It would have been really nice to have had the red and black check inside as well, but I ran out of fabric. Right, okay, so I've got my middles. So this main panel is right sides up. I'm going to turn this right side down so they're right sides facing. And let me see how much smaller my pocket piece is. I think it might be the same height. Yeah, it's the same height, so I can use exactly the same measurements as are in the pattern. Just need to make my actual zip pocket a little bit less wide. So I'm lining up the center again on my ruler. And oh dear, I've pulled my pin out of my center of my pocket when I was doing that. Let's try that one again. Got a bit enthusiastic then. Either that or too much warmth today. It's lovely and warm here in Cornwall today, okay, which is quite unusual. Right, so lining up my centres, make sure they're all nice and parallel and all nice and straight. And then I'm going to pin that to the top, and I pin it along the top seam allowance there, so that those holes are not going to show in the end. If you're using cotton or canvas or something that doesn't show the holes, then it doesn't matter too much about that. So with the same height, so again I can use the same measurements as we had already. So put the box 6 inches up. Now all these measurements are in the pattern, so if you're working in metric, don't panic too much. You've got them there converted for you. So I've drawn my bottom line at that 6 inches, and then I'm going to draw my second line 3/8 of an inch above it. So I'd be interested to know if anybody has chosen to make the reversible hobo bag after seeing it reverse. So I'll have to show you it, how it reverses once we've finished that little bit. Okay, so this, I've only got 9 inches long, so I'm going to cut my pocket down to 7 inches wide instead of the 8 inches that the pattern says. It's only an inch shorter. There we go. But then I've got a nice inch either side just to hang on to. Makes it a little bit easier turning the pocket out. So I'm going to do exactly the same as I did before and stitch around this box. So exactly the same as the last pocket. If you're using 2 different fabrics, then make sure that one pocket is on one fabric and the other pocket is on the other fabric. Okay. So I'm just sewing around this box. Same as I did before. Okay, don't forget to change your stitch length back up if you do alter it. And I will cut through, I'll leave you on this view so you can see me cutting it through. We don't need these centre marks anymore. So if anybody's not sure why I couldn't use the other panel with the turning gap as my exterior, I'll show you once we put the fleece onto this panel. We're just going to create a bit of a, I suppose a bit of a secret pocket in there. You won't be able to get to it just with the fleece. But it will mean that you won't be able to turn your bag out. So if you are using faux leather that doesn't like pressing and you need to baste your fleece on, make sure that you attach your fleece to the panel that doesn't have your turning gap. Okay. Right, so we're doing exactly the same as we did before. Just post it through. If you're using cottons, take a minute just to press those from the right side before you push it through. Make sure it's nice and neat. Okay, I think we can get away with pressing that. We did it on the other panel, didn't we? And it didn't melt. So we'll give it a go and see if it melts. We might have to have a slight break while we cut something else. I'll be very gentle with this iron, and it's not on very high. I'm just pressing around the opening there. Just pop that on. Just press the other side, just make it nice and neat, or as neat as I can with these bulky fabrics. I still think it will turn out really well, and you won't be able to notice in the end, but because you're here with me sewing it, you will know, and I will know. Okay, that looks quite nice. So we need our basting tape and the last zip. Check there's nothing wrong with that zip. Okay. So as I said, if you want to add some slip pockets to this, you can do. You can take the methods out of the complete bag making masterclass book, which we released a couple of years ago. Now. My goodness. It was, wasn't it? 2020. But you can choose, and if you prefer not to carry a wallet, you could add some card slots in there. Sky's your limit, really. Okay. So take the backing off this tape. And then the same as we did before, but because our pocket is slightly smaller or because my pocket is slightly smaller because I ran out of fabric, I'll just open my zip pull slightly more so that I can be sure of getting that metal stopper right in that window. I just like to know where it is, so that's why I keep it in view. Okay, once I've got that lined up, I can close that zip pull and just manipulate that into place. Okay, slightly wonky there, so we make sure that's nice and even. Now again, I'm going to start at this bottom corner and sew all the way around. I'm going to sew it as neatly as I can in my contrast red threads. I don't make life easy for myself, do I? I'm choosing my least favourite colour as a contrast on black. But I thought if I use black thread, you won't be able to see what's going on at all. So I thought that would be a bit useless. Okay. Exactly the same as we did before. Stop when you get to the zip pull and move it out of the way. And then pivot at the corner. And again. And then pivot, move that zip pull again. Okay, so just little stitches if you need to get to a certain place to turn the corner. There we go. Okay. So now what we need to do is again turn to our back. Check. Yeah, let's cut that thread actually before we do. So we need to turn to the back now, fold that down. So before we do, let's open the zip pull to the middle just so we know exactly where it is. Check that's all okay. Yeah, that's fine. I just thought I'd caught that then, but okay. Now my metal stoppers on my open end are going to be in that seam there, so I'm just going to trim those very, very slightly, and it's only because my zip pocket on this one is slightly smaller because I ran out of fabric. So I'll fold that down to meet, same as we did before, and then just pin it. And I don't need to leave a turning gap in this one, so I could just sew all the way around all of the open edges on this zip pocket. So I'll do that, and then we'll add our fleece to this panel. The other way you can sew these, so I sewed it the the other way, didn't I? But the other way is you can put your main panel up and just pull it back and sew pocket on the bottom, which is slightly easier to see what you've got going on. Let me swap you to the other view so you can see. Another stitch there. Again, just pull this main panel out of the way. There we go. Okay, so that's both of our zip pockets done. Right, take the pins out of this one first, and then I'm going to baste my foam onto this panel. So this is going to be my exterior for the moment, which is kind of a bit of a moot point really, because it's a reversible bag, but it just helps, I think, to think of one as your exterior and one as your interior, your lining, just while sewing it. So I'll clip this and then I'll flip it over to sew it on the faux leather side, which I find slightly easier. At least then if my faux leather's going to pucker, I can see what's going on ahead of time. I'm just clipping this into place. So by the end of this, you'll have 2 pieces with fleece on. One of those will have a zip pocket in it. 2 pieces without fleece, and one of those will have a zip pocket. Okay, that's what we're aiming for. So if you have fused yours on, then that's great. If not, you'll need to baste it. So I'm going to baste mine just to hold it into place, because it's not sticking very well at all. I think sometimes it gives it a slightly better finish as well, a little bit less wrinkly. I wonder if I could be basted around my face, and then I'd have a less wrinkly face. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So for all my criticism about red, this red thread looks really nice against the black faux leather, actually. I can't quite say that I like it. But as reds go, it's not too bad. I'm sewing around all of the edges, including around the corner cutouts. If your machine isn't quite as strong as mine, you might want to cut the fleece away from the corner cutouts and away from the top edges, just to reduce the bulk. So just have a think about that before you get started basting or fusing. Oh, I've gone too far. Just gone back one. Don't panic if you do that. It's okay. Right, we'll baste this and then we'll have a little break. Little hydration break. And recap what we've got. Got some water here. It's very warm today here in Cornwall, as I said, more so in the studio with lights. If you're sewing, it's very important to remember to drink water. I don't drink enough. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, no, I don't take my walking foot off. I use my walking foot pretty much as a comfort blanket, so I leave it on most of the time. Hi everybody. It is cotton. It's 100% cotton. It's 100% cotton flannel shirt that I found in the charity shop, because I knew I needed another red bag, and I don't like red. It's not my favourite colour. So I was being really fussy trying to think, which fabric, and I went online shopping and we chose a few, but nothing I was 100% happy with. So we went to the charity shop and found this shirt, which was perfect, absolutely perfect. Yes, no, okay, so I don't take my walking foot off. It doesn't need the walking foot on there, but I don't take it off, just, I don't know, comfort blanket thing. Okay, so this is the Reversible Hobo bag that we are sewing at the moment, or if you abbreviate it to Rev Hobo, which we do on our stock take, it's the Reverend Hobo bag. Right, so let's have a look. So we've got one panel with a zip pocket and fleece, one panel with a no zip pocket and fleece. So you should have two panels with fleece, one of them with zip pocket, one of them without. And then you should have two panels without fleece, one of them with zip pocket, one of them without. Okay, so I'm considering this to be my fabric one, or my exterior fabric. So I've got the check and plain faux leather, and then this to be my fabric two, my interior fabric, which is the faux leather. Before we go any further, I'll cut the rest of my bottoms, corners, square corners. Yeah, it's probably better than bottoms, isn't it? So I'll cut the rest, same as I did for the other ones. Okay, that fell perfectly into my scraps pile below the table. I just thought I should tell you that. It's very helpful of it. Thank you very much, faux leather. Absolutely perfect. Right, so that's my two interior panels there, or my fabric two panels. Now let's see which one of these is going to be the top and which is the bottom. So I've got a seam here and a seam here. I'm gonna turn that around because this seam is quite near to the edge, so a little bit bulkier when I come to do my final top stitching. So I'll cut this one off as my bottom corner, and then I'm keeping as much bulk out of it as possible. You shouldn't have any seams in yours if you're using regular fabric, but I'm using the upcycled shirt, so it comes with its own little quirks. And also excellent for the environment. Right. Okay, so we are ready to move on to our next piece. So we will need next our front bottom catches. Okay, so that is piece E, I believe. Let's have a look for my E. Oh, I've lost my handles. No, I haven't. I've lost my flaps. I'll have to go and get those afterwards. Right, so we need our E front bottom catches. Now my fabric is really thick, so I'm going to be doing mine the vinyl way. If you're using thinner fabric, then do it the fabric way. So step 13 shows you the way to do it for the fabric, and then step 19 shows you how to do it for faux leather. So we're going to skip in the video to step 19. I'm using faux leather, and my flannel is a little bit thicker. So all we do for these is just draw a line down the centre. I'll use my white chalk again. Let me see if I can turn you so you can see a little bit easier. Yeah, that's better, isn't it? Okay. So these are, let's see, so let's draw a line down the centre. I'm just lining up my ruler on the edge there. And when I say centre, I mean centre sort of lengthwise. Okay, like that. And we'll do the same on this one. And that one's going to be a little bit trickier because we can't press the faux leather so well. On the cotton, what we're going to do is, let's swap you over to here. I'm going to fold these long edges in to the centre and give those a little press. So we'll do that here. So I'm just folding those into that centre line that we just made. Giving that a nice press to hold into place. Okay. If you're using regular quilting cotton, this will give it a really nice crisp fold there. If you're not, don't worry too much because we are going to give it a little bit of a sew. Okay. Right, now all we do with this on the right side is sew along the edges using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. That's 3mm seam allowance. Just double checking I haven't done anything funny to my video. Yeah, not too bad. Okay, I've just stepped on the keyboard is the problem. Just need to double check. Right, okay, so we'll sew down these long edges. And then the other side. That one was easy in the cotton there, but in the faux leather, what I need to do is just fold it. Just hold that in place for a minute. I'm doing this on the wrong side, aren't I? So you can't see. There we go. Fold it and just clip it a little bit further down. Take that first clip out and just fold that manually into place as I'm sewing. Could tape it or glue it. I'm just going for it though. Probably sensible I check this before I do the other side, seeing as I'm using red. Oh, hang on, I was still on the wrong stitch length. Uh-oh. Now that's not a major issue because it's not a piece that takes the strain of anything. It literally is just somewhere for the flap to hang on to, but I am going to unpick that because it's not right. So just talk amongst yourselves for a minute while I unpick that. Thank goodness it's a long stitch length. And actually now I've got a really nice crisp fold in there. So I'll clip that as I unpick, just hold it in place as I pick this out. Hope everybody's had a lovely day. Looking forward to getting their reversible hobo bags started. Don't panic too much if you're not ready to sew right now because we are recording this and it will go onto YouTube. It will also stay in our Facebook group, Sewing Patterns by Mrs H support group. Okay. Right, take two. We'll pretend that never happened. And I'll clip it. I'll clip it again into place so that I can sew on the right side because I've got black in my bobbin and I quite like the red, the contrast red thread showing. Right, much better. Excellent. Okay, so let's clip the other side. Make sure that's staying in place while we sew or top stitch the other side into place. Now on my flannel, because I've got that long stitch, that's on the right side, so I could just go and do another line of stitching just next to it with the correct stitch length as a little bit of a feature maybe. And if anybody asks, it was supposed to happen. Okay. Right, that's much better now. Okay. Much nicer. So I think I will whiz down this just inside that line. So it doesn't take any weight, that bit, but it is helpful to at least have it sewn on the right stitch length, isn't it? Okay, so now we need our small triangle rings. Let's get my bag of hardware. Do we need? No, we need our large triangle rings. So that's the 1.5 inch triangle rings. Okay, so we're going to fold these through the triangle rings and fold through whichever end you want to be the top. So I don't know if it really matters on mine, but we're going to fold it through by 1 inch. That's 2.5 centimeters. Yeah, so that's right. So just fold it through and then clip into place, and the same on this one. I'm going to be using the plain black one on my check fabric and my check one on my plain black fabric, because I think that'll be a really nice feature. Okay, so I'm just clipping these to hold them for a minute. Now this is asking us to stitch it to secure it into place. So I'm going to stitch from the right side, and I'm going to try and sew as straight as I can, even without having a guide there, seeing as I'm using my contrast thread. Oh, the concentration. Okay. Just going to leave those threads really long and tie them off, rather than getting my machine to clip them. So all I'm doing is I'm just pulling on my bobbin thread to get the front thread through, and then you can get a pin. Let's see if I can swap it to the other view. So I've just pulled on my bobbin thread, get my front thread to come through, just pop a pin through the loop there, and then you can just tie them off at the back. And I'm going to do that with the other thread, which I can see it looks like it's all bundled up, but it hasn't. It's just got caught by that stitches, or those stitches, sorry. That's those two. Just see if I can get that with my pin. Actually, that's pretty secure in there, so maybe I'll leave that in there. That's going to be hidden on the back anyway. It looks alright from the front, doesn't it? Okay, so we'll do exactly the same on the on the fabric one, on the other one. Okay, now don't panic about these stitches. They are literally just to hold it in place. If you don't feel confident that you can stitch these neatly, then don't panic too much. You can wait. You can literally just glue it or baste it, use some tape until we come to attach it to the main panels. Right, oh, that looks a bit of a mess, I thought. It's because it's the wrong side. There we go, that's a bit better. Okay, so now we're going to lie these on our panels. So we need the 2 panels which don't have zip pockets on. So for me, that is my 1 check panel with fleece on it and my 1 faux leather panel without fleece on it. That's what it is for me. So for you, it will be whichever 2 panels don't have a zip pocket on, and one of them will have fleece and one of them won't. Okay, so find your center if you haven't already. Didn't for this panel, did I? Because that would be too easy. So we just find in the center, and then we're gonna add our front bottom catches onto here. So on this panel, my nice check, I'm going to use my plain black faux leather, and I'm lining it up along the bottom so that the bottom raw edges match, and the center of my strap, or my front bottom catch, is directly in line with the center of my main panel. So just make sure that that is nice and perfectly straight or parallel in place. Now, because I can't really pin that, can I? I'm going to use a bit of tape just to hold it in place. You can use glue if you prefer. I'm just going to use tape because that's what I've got here. So I'm going to add tape fairly close to the top there. And when we stitch this into place, we're going to be, well, we could either stitch directly on the stitching that we've already done, or we could go a little bit further in. I suppose on my fabric one, it doesn't really matter because I've got 2 lines of stitching anyway, haven't I? So it doesn't matter which one I follow. Okay. So again, we're lining up the center. Make sure that's perfectly straight, and you can just kind of check that with how it looks. Once you're happy with that, give that a good press down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sew along the side up to the top as close as we can to the ring, along the top and back down. Okay, I'm not sure how close I'm going to be able to get with my foot, so I might have to change to my adjustable foot and see how we get on this faux leather. I think we'll try that and see, and if it all goes terribly wrong, then me and my stitch and picker will meet you back here for part 2. Although I'm sure it'll be fine. It's just rather sticky, this vinyl. Okay, so I'm just going to put my now this is an adjustable zipper / piping foot, which means you can adjust exactly where the needle, or exactly where the foot falls in relation to the needle. So I've set mine that my needle falls directly in line with the edge of the foot, and there's a little cutout in the edge of the foot so the needle doesn't hit it. Right, so I'm going to attempt to sew all the way up along the top and back down again, and we'll see how we get on. I'm going to try and sew directly on those stitches because I don't have my walking foot to give me a nice neat line to follow. which I usually would do. Was not going well so far. Let's move along a bit. It's not going great, let's be honest. Right, we'll abandon that. We'll swap back to my walking foot. Just unpick that for a minute. My unpicker. Bring you back while I unpick that. Hope everybody's not having to unpick their stitches. So I think on this one I'm just going to slide my ripper in. Oh dear. Didn't plan this one, did we? Okay. Yeah, this fabric did not like that foot really, did it? Or rather, that foot did not like this fabric. Better to try it, I suppose, and find out at the start than try and go all the way around. At least we know that for when we come to do the other bits and pieces. Right, so we'll just make sure that that's lined up again. Pull this extra thread out that we've got. Don't need that. Pull these stitches out. There we go. Okay. So that's still lined up. That's great. We'll swap back to my walking foot. And I think I'll just have to go as close as I can. And then maybe add a rivet in at the top where I can't get close enough with my foot. Maybe just add a rivet to secure it a little bit higher up, which I think would actually be fine. Maybe should have thought of that first, shouldn't I? Never mind. Okay. Try and get this screw back in. Now, I'm not very good at lining up the screws when I change my feet, so I think that's probably why I like to keep my walking foot on. There we go. Right, let's try again. Wonder if we can edit this bit out. Be a nice idea, wouldn't it? Right, everybody pretend that didn't happen. Try again. There we go. So I've just sewn up that first line. Now I've stopped directly where I've pivoted before, or where I haven't pivoted before, where I've sewn along the top. Let me change you to this view so you can see what's going on. And then I've sewn across the top. And then back down again. Now I am going to have to give this a little tug to get it through because we've got the ring here at the back of my foot. There we go, it didn't get caught after all. Okay, right, that looks great, I think. That's a good contrast on there. So we'll do exactly the same to the other panel, and I'm going to put a rivet in there right at the top just to hold that secure and keep it as tight to that ring as I can. So now we need our second panel that doesn't have the zip pocket on, and that is this faux leather here, and we are going to need to find our centres first. And then we're going to add the front bottom catch onto there as well. And I'm going to be using my check fabric on this. So if you are, you can decide if you want to use your matching fabrics on your matching fabric, or if you want to use your contrasts. It's up to you, your choice. Right, so because I'm going through fabric, I could use pins to secure this in place, or I could use my tape again. Let's see, I think I'm going to use tape actually, because it will stop it being distorted out of the way. So no matter what on this bag, we get a little hint of my red check fabric, even if it's turned inside out and the black side is out. Which I guess would be really, really good actually for winter and Christmas. Do you like a bit of red and black check at Christmas time? Which is funny because it's one of the hottest days of the year here so far, and we usually have Christmas in winter in the northern hemisphere. So okay, right, so I've just lined that up, so I'm going to do exactly the same on this one as I did before. So I'm going to sew up the edge along the top and back down again, just to secure that into place. Now I guess if you didn't want the two lines of stitching directly on each other, you could change it so that you, when you do your top stitching, you do your top stitching at maybe 1/4 of an inch, and then when you stitch it onto your main panels, you do that at 1/8 of an inch, or vice versa. I suppose that would work well, wouldn't it? Right, so all we're going to do today before we finish for today, and then you've got time to catch up, or get started. If you haven't got started, you can watch me back, and then we'll come to the second half in the next video. So all we're going to do today is we're going to put our two sets of panels together. So the two panels that don't have fleece on them, they're I'm considering those my linings. They're my fabric 2. So I'm just going to match those right sides together. So you should have one with a front bottom catch and one with a zip pocket, and we're going to put those right sides together, matching all of the edges. Now on the fabric 2, the one that we're considering lining, we're just going to clip it, and then we're going to leave this one for the minute. We'll come back to that one. On the ones with the fleece attached, our fabric 1 or our exterior panels, we are going to stitch them, but we're only going to stitch the side seams today on those. So I'm just clipping these. We'll see what time we've got left to do these ones. I don't want to keep you too long on today's video, and then if we need to catch up a little bit on the next one, we can. I think we're doing okay. Right, so those are my two panels without fleece attached. They're clipped, matched together, so we know that they are a pair. Now our two panels with fleece on, okay, so this is our fabric 1 or our main fabric. So I've got one red and one black faux leather. So I've got one with a front bottom catch and one with a zip pocket attached. Can you see that? Okay. Now we're going to match these. Or I can take my centre marks out. Those. We can match the bottom seam and clip it, but we are only going to sew the side seams at the moment. Okay, and we've skipped a little bit. We've skipped sewing the side accents just to save a little bit of time today. We'll come back to those on the next video. Okay, so don't panic. Just wanted to make sure that we've definitely got 2 pairs of our fabrics. So we're just going to sew along the side seams using our 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so just remember, don't sew along the bottom corner cutouts or the bottom seam. Back stitch at the start and the end. Let me swap you back to the other view so you can see what's going on at least. Right, that looks good to me. Okay, so we'll do the other one. Just double checking my sewing's not, or my cutting out is not always 100% straight, so just double checking that I caught everything then. Right, there we go. So we've, oh yes, should check that one as well. Well remembered. Okay, so we've got a long tube with our 2 fleece panels, and that is going to be the 2 fabrics that you want to be together. So I've got 1 check and 1 black, and that's going to be my main exterior. This is how I'm going to use the bag most of the time. Like this, and you can go ahead and turn it out, turn it right sides out. Okay, so my main bag will have red on one side and black on the other side, and then the other 2 panels, we've got them clipped together. Okay, we could probably sew those. Let's double check that I'm not missing anything if we do. No, we won't miss anything. So while we've got a couple of minutes, let's go ahead and sew those. Oh, hang on. I am missing something. I haven't quite caught my seam there. Go back and sew that properly. Told you my cutting out wasn't always very straight, didn't I? Whoops. I'll sew with that side on top, so that I make sure that I'm definitely following the edge. Alternatively, what I could have done was put my pieces on top of each other and just whizzed around with my rotary cutter, which I think I'll do next actually, just to make sure that they're all even and lined up. Now this one, it doesn't matter if you're not massively accurate, so don't panic if the same has happened to you. They're large panels, and sometimes if you cut them on the fold, you can end up with a little bit extra. This one, it doesn't matter too much if you're slightly inaccurate, so don't panic too much. Okay, so just whiz down the side seam. No wonder that wasn't really caught in the seam. That's quite different there. I might just recut these bottom corners as well, just to make sure that we're accurate there. Okay, so don't worry if you've got exactly the same as me. It's slightly uneven and need to trim up. Doesn't matter. We're all friends here. Nobody's going to tell. Okay. So I'm just going to sew up this side seam again, seeing as I've cut most of that off now. At least we'll know it's the right seam allowance then, won't we? Put that away. Okay. So again with our 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. There we go. Okay. Double check. Yeah, no holes. Yeah, no holes. Well, that was a silly error, wasn't it? Okay. But because we matched centres, at least I'm not going to be skew-if when we make our bag together. Oh, I think that looks great like that, actually. I'm really looking forward to seeing this finished. Okay, so I'm just going to sew up the side seams of the other two panels, so then we know definitely that our fabric 1 panels are together and our fabric 2 panels are together. So for me, that's exterior and lining, although I am making this reversible. I don't seem to have a reversible hobo that is reversible so that I can show you. I think I've given them as gifts or used them, or they faded in the window, things. So it'd be really handy to have one to show you. Okay, and we'll just sew the other side. I'll have a quick check as well to see if there's any questions. So if you have got questions, do ask, and then I'll just recap what we've got and what we've done. Right, check those are fine. Yep, great. Now it will really help you for the next video if you can somehow flatten these side seams. So if you have got a nice fabric that you can press, then I would recommend getting either a rolled up towel or a tailor's clapper or something, and just give these a really nice press and see if you can open these seam allowances. Now I can't, so I'm just going to clip these at the top and the bottom so that when we come back to it for part 2, they should have a little bit of training at least in how to sit open. Okay, so my fabric 2 are both together and my fabric 1 are both together as well. So this one I'm also going to clip the seam allowances open at the top and the bottom, just to train them slightly, so by the time we come to sew the rest of it, it's a little bit easier. This helps reduce the bulk in those side corners, side seams, and also when we come to put the side accents on as well. Okay, oh, can't seem to open that one, there we go. Right, so let's have a little recap of what we've got. So we've got our fabric 1 sewn together, 1 with a front bottom catch and 1 with a zip pocket. We've got our fabric 2 sewn together, 1 with a front bottom catch and 1 with a zip pocket. Okay, so each zip pocket panel has got a panel attached to it with a front bottom catch. We've also got our front flaps. Mine are on the floor, so I can't show you those. I will have those. We've got our 2 handle pieces still to sew and our side accents, and we've still got the hardware for the handles, or the handle, the flap and the side accents. So you should have 2 swivel hooks for the handle, 1 swivel hook for the flap and 2 triangle rings for the side accents. Okay, and that's how we're going to make our bag reversible. So don't lose those between now and part 2. let's have a look and see if there's any questions. If not, then I'll say goodbye to you and I'll be back with part 2. So if you want to catch up with any bits or you want to start sewing, you've got time, so don't panic. Okay, hi everybody. Oh, hi. Deb, that's a great idea. I could put tape on the bottom. It does actually have grooves in the bottom of the walking foot which help to move the fabric along. This is my second walking foot because the first walking foot I used it so much that those grooves, they're kind of like little spikes. They kind of wore away, so it was just completely smooth, like you get on a tyre. So I had to get a new one. But it's okay to admit that it's not you, it's the sticky vinyl. It's okay to admit that and just change what you're going to do. Right, any other questions? Let's have a look. Oh, it does have a nice feel to it, you're right. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for joining me today. So we've got a little bit of time to catch up with everything. If you want to start sewing, you can. You've got time to catch up. You can rewind this video. You can come back to it another day. Or if you want to, you can just come and hang out with us for the next video as well. Okay. Next video will be on Thursday at exactly the same time as this. So that's 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. UK time. I'll have to sew quite quick on the next video. Otherwise we might slightly overrun, but I think we should be okay. I just want to say thank you very much for joining me, and thank you everybody who's taken part in our promotion and used the 30% discount code on Mrs. H patterns and Swoon patterns. If you haven't already used that, the code is 30 off. So that's the word 30 and then the word off, all lowercase, 30 off, no space in between. THIRTYOFF. So enter that into the discount code or the coupon code box, and that will take 30% off your whole basket at www.mrs-h.com or www.swoonpatterns.com. Okay, thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you again on Thursday. All right, bye bye.